So welcome back, everyone. 12-Step Big Book Workshop. My name is Lisa, and I am a student of the 12 Steps Method of Recovery. My focus fellowships are CODA, Al-Anon, and OA, and many others. I'm so happy to be back with you for another fantastic opportunity to take a look at our Step 7. So join me in the set-aside prayer with the willingness and the desire to have an open mind and open heart, the gift of understanding as we apply our 7th step. God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, my Step 7, and my recovery so that I may have a new experience with my shortcomings, fear, but especially with you. So on page 25, Bill said, there is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confessions of shortcomings, which this process requires for its successful consummation. There was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we have not even dreamed. This metaphor that we have been addressing for a while is, or has established the need for our relationship with power. That's what this is all about. Which, when you think about it, is ironic. We come into the program because we're too controlling and we spend a lot of time trying to be in power. But that's the point. My definition of spirituality is pretty basic. It's not complicated, and it's pretty practical and pretty much spirit and science-based. I have shared my ideal as being a creator of what form I don't know, but I can see and comprehend creation. I have been created, as are all people around the world. And in fact, everywhere I look, I see creation in one form or another. This I cannot deny, but I do define it based on my own abilities. Spirituality is a broad, personal quest for meaning, purpose, in connection to something larger than oneself, often involving inner peace, awe, and transcendence, distinct from, but sometimes intertwined with, organized religion. A relationship with the spirit that needs to be thought about with lots of willingness and imagination. And Bill says that the willingness is the cornerstone with commitment, which is what makes up the first stage of the rocket launch. The only action required is prayer, and that's an action, but it's really a public witness to the commitment for more action, and that makes up the second stage of the rocket launch, to identify and remove the obstacles that block the power that is in us. This is a faith decision, allowing that there is a power and that it is in us, which we have reviewed a few times through this course. A faith decision about my will, and the antidote to my willfulness is my willingness, known as the proper use of my will. But it is not in regard to my addiction. It's not even with regard to my unmanageability. Bill says on page 53, God or no God, that is the proper use of the will. So our real problem is that we have obstacles in us that block this power. Bill uses another metaphor, the sunlight of the spirit. This metaphor shows us the contrast between the darkness and the light. The sunlight represents truth, openness, and emotional sobriety, in contrast to the dark, negative emotional states that lead to our using our addiction of choice. The goal we are striving for is to live in the light, awake rather than asleep, alone in the darkness. So we're in the second stage of the rocket launch, which is steps 4 through 7, which we will complete tonight as part of that completion. We are headed to our final destination, stage 3. We have been doing a bit of house cleaning that leads to letting go of our recently uncovered shortcomings that we have carried and worked around for years and or decades, creating chaos and unmanageability that led us to our relief of using our addictions. To cover the real issues, this stage is the Pandora's box of a variety of poor behaviors and outcomes that show us to a better place of peace through faith. So we all start out in a miserable state, trapped in our bondage of addiction and unmanageability. And that phrase is a wonderful contrast to the unmanageability, which is also known as the bondage of self. Step one was about our bondage, the first half about the addictions, and the second half about the spiritual malady, the cancer of the soul. And we all want freedom from this limiting lifestyle. But in order to have freedom, we need an outside source of power, and it needs to be paired with our call to action. This is a magical alchemy formula of willingness and action. Grace and the Spirit on the one hand, our role and efforts on the other hand. We forge ahead, hand in hand with our higher power. A mysterious component that we can attempt to describe, but we really don't understand it. We give it a name or even different names, but we still don't understand it. The Big Book uses the statement, God as we understand God. I'm more comfortable saying the power I don't understand, but I can bear witness to the effect it has in my life and my recovery. This mystery is irreplaceably useful for the many who have resistance to any type of religious connotation, or perhaps instead to think of it as an organismic life force, the life force that allows the universe to expand and create mysterious wonders and beauty, including mankind itself. My favorite example of transformation, which is the butterfly, is limitlessness, is that of the butterfly chrysalis. What an extraordinary process that for me exemplifies the ability of change and transformation, and it's available to everybody. Freedom is the metamorphosis, which means beyond change. It's the freedom that comes as promised in the Big Book. On page 84, it says, we are placed in a position of neutrality, freedom from our addictions and our behaviors. On page 83, Bill says, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And that's referred to as the promises. So we're rocketed into the fourth dimension. And the rocket takes us to where it wants us to go. Once in orbit, the rocket will just go where it is best for us while we enjoy the ride, peaceful in our release of control over the outcome. In the seventh step, the conclusion and takeaway from the sixth step, where we name it and talk about it. We talked about character defects and the implication. In the Big Book, it tells us that we are powerless, but it also says in step 6 that we need to be willing to have them be removed. Even if when we're not ready, and we are never ready, which is why we pray for the readiness and the willingness. That's the key. And of course, we pair that up with our prayer for the removal, which is the seventh step prayer. On page 76, in that small second paragraph, which is the whole address to this step, it says that when we are ready, we say something like this in prayer. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good, bad, or indifferent. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. Then it says, we have now completed step 7. Herein lies my comment that steps 6 and 7 go fast. If you have the 12 and 12, it is a good idea to read about steps 6 and 7. It goes much further into detail than the little paragraph on page 76 does. Don't run out and buy the book, because I'm pretty sure you can get it online and read it without paying for it. So step 7 involves humbly asking a higher power to remove our character defects. Bill says we humbly asked God, inspiration, creator, higher power, etc., whatever you call it, to remove our shortcomings. Humility is at the heart of this step. On page 59, he says, humbly ask God. That is the way he starts the step itself, which he doesn't say on page 76. He just has the prayer, but he is also talking about the attitude in this step. The word humbly comes from the Latin word humus, which means earth, dirt, like the sand pebbles, grains of sand on the beach. This picture that you're looking at is a magnified photo of average beach sand.
Oh.
Grains, I know, isn't it amazing? That's when you have sand on your foot, that's what you actually have on your foot, if you could see it. The picture is a magnified photo of average beach sand, grains of sand, millions and billions of grains on every beach around the world, and no two pieces are alike. Think about the enormity of that. Look at all the different shapes and sizes, yet unmagnified, they lose their individuality and just appear as regular everyday sand. It's all brown or black if you're in Hawaii. Bill doesn't give us much on the step aside from the prayer, but he does tell us about the attitude that is required to succeed. This is the point about being humbled or experiencing humility, especially in the big book, when Bill talks about anonymity as a spiritual principle. Doing good deeds without recognition for the mere sake of doing good. So the homework assignment was to rewrite the 7th step prayer, and I love that it begins with my Creator. It's perfect. I have the original on the left in my revision for you to see a sample of how you can revise the prayer if you haven't done it yet. And we have written down and identified our shortcomings and obstacles that stand in the way to peace. If you have done your 5th step, you have done a rather lengthy confession, basically. And in doing so, we have shown the light with much needed transparency, with the acknowledgement that we are powerless over our obstacles, resentments, fears, and shame. On page 66 and 67, Bill gave us a prayer practice to remove our deep resentments. There was a quick reference in the fear inventory, and that was really powerful. We named our fears, but all the analyzing in the world about those fears won't get rid of them. In the final analysis, we pray. And we do. We pray for the power to implement it all while remaining in our integrity. He said in the 11th step that we have to pray for the knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. The two things that make us human are our mind and our will. Our mind provides the knowledge, but it's not enough, as nothing happens until we move our feet. We make a decision and then we take action. And that's the whole dimension of the recovery program, steps 1 through 9, as well as the program for living, which are steps 10 and 11, to know better and do better on a daily basis. And when we know better, but just don't do better, because that is what humans do. We have the 10th step to implement corrective actions to know better and to do better going forward. The 7th step prayer starts with my Creator and continues with something such as, I have admitted all my defects of character in step 5. I have analyzed them and talked to a trusted person about them. It doesn't say to do this specifically, but we can interpret it in this way. The purpose of the 7th step is to practice humility, surrender, an action assisted by asking a higher power to help remove character defects identified in the earlier steps. Acknowledging our personal limitations and actively letting go of self-reliance to achieve spiritual growth and lasting sobriety, making it a bridge from self-awareness to ongoing recovery. On page 62, Bill says, selfishness, self-centeredness. That, we think, is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Step 4 really brought our shortcomings home, and when we told someone of this in our step 5, in saying it out loud, most likely for the first time, and hearing it for ourselves, from ourselves, we may have felt something like horrified at who we have been and the impact of that on other people, let alone ourselves. Then we moved along to step 6, and it showed us how unmanageable we were. And we know that unmanageability is the problem, as Bill has repeatedly informed us. Addiction is not the issue, as many of us had assumed. Bill says a spiritual malady is the real problem, and also says we are not cured on page 85, but that we do have a daily reprieve. So Bill's saying he's not talking about our addiction on page 84. As he already said, we have been placed in a position of neutrality with regard to our addiction. But we are not cured. We just have a daily reprieve from our unmanageability, our willfulness, our self-will, our selfishness, and self-centeredness, which is the way we are built as humans, and that is what creates our spiritual malady. And to top it off, we are powerless over it all. On page 62, Bill writes, we can't even reduce it much by wishing or trying on our own power. Powerlessness penetrates every single step. It is the foundation of every step, and yet we are fully responsible, and that's a 1-2 punch. In steps 6 and 7, the prayer begins, my Creator, because we need to be recreated. My life needs to be recreated along with my attitudes and outlooks. Bill says in step 6 that although we are powerless, we need to be willing and willing to be willing. And we don't get on our knees to pray to get our higher power's attention. We get on our knees to get into our own attention, to be aware, conscious, and intentional. We get on our knees to be humble. We kneel in admittance that it is not in our hands. Prayer does not change God. Prayer changes the one who prays. The key to step 6 is willingness, and if we are not willing, we pray for the willingness to be willing. Then the crack in that door we slammed shut will show a glimmer of light, a welcome to go forward. So I am powerless over the character defects, but I am 100% responsible for how it manifests in my behavior. So every day I pray, I pray for the removal of my character defects and for the change in my behavior. Through the step 4 inventories, we have been shown that we are responsible for the way we behave. That new awareness in itself is a spiritual awakening. We have discovered the truth. Our eyes have been opened. So I pray every day because I am powerless against my dysfunctional inclinations and my need for power to remove them for myself. We do what it takes to be accountable for our behaviors. We succeed to the truth. And this is not a quick fix. We don't make a list and the poor behaviors just disappear. We make the list, admit it is a shortcoming that needs to be released, and then we pray for the removal. The process can be slow and requires as much time as it takes on our end to completely let it go. And as in all recovery, it is not a straight line. It will have ups and downs. Some days will be easier to tackle, and some days will be harder. Allowing powerlessness into our lives feels like we are out of control, potentially leading to a feeling of anxiety and hopelessness. But we will regain an immense sense of freedom by remembering what we can control, which is our behaviors, responses, and actions. Admitting we are powerless over our addictions is the first step to taking back control in recovery. This is not an admission of total defeat. It means we tried, but we can't manage it alone. But we can choose to seek help through our higher power and make different choices. Even though steps 6 and 7 are short in the directions for success, they are transformative and very powerful. We are powerless to change our inclination for poor behaviors, but with accountability, we will be able to have, through prayer, the behavior change rather immediately. With consistent prayer and accountability, over time, the inclinations are gone. The problem is our self centeredness, and my will always choose me, and the turning in so many instances that we commit to in step 3, with the commitment to doing steps 4 through 7, is the compilation of the turnings we will make along the way. When we do this work with the combination of willingness and grace, we make many important turns. We turn from our self-centeredness to other-centeredness, the spiritual coin of steps 11 and 12. In step 11, we are in conscious contact with a higher power, and then improving our conscious contact through step 12, we distribute the grace we have received to others. Bill calls this work soul surgery. This is where healing begins to take place. Healing is the outcome of step 7, the beginning of the healing. The balance of the healing comes at the end of the 9th step with the forgiveness process. We talked about it in step 1 when we talked about the bedevilments. This is how we behave when we are unmanageable. Page 52, Bill says, we were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. And my false self has covered up my real self. And I don't know what my real self is, but when I do steps 4, 5, and 6, I chip away at the false self, and this prayer is the antidote that we poured on the parts that don't belong, and the real self appears. Remember the story of the 2 wolves? We stop and think about the metaphoric message of which wolf to feed, and in the end, the one that wins is the one we feed. Father Richard Rohr had a quote, and he said, we either transform our character defects or we transmit them. If you are filled with bedevilments, then that is what you will transmit. If you have the darkness in you, that is what you will transmit into your life. The process of steps 6 and 7 are steps of transformation, a spiritual awakening, a change that is radical, and our root problem is selfishness and self centeredness. Step 6 and 7 are the surgical tools. If you have a thought, a feeling, a behavior, or a habit, or maybe just a way that you no longer want to be, and it is affecting yourself and others in a negative fashion, and you want to change, then working up to 6 and 7 while praying for specific removal and change of those thoughts, feelings, or behaviors, and you are willing to be accountable for your behaviors, then you can use this process, which is complete steps 6 and 7, pray because you are powerless, hold yourself accountable because you are human and you are 100% responsible for your behaviors. No excuses, nothing about your story, childhood situation, or genetics, biology, or psychology, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for 100% of your behaviors. So that's as much as I could spread out a paragraph on step 7 with hopefully as much information as was helpful. And at this point, I'd love to hear anybody who might have revised the prayer and how you revised it, or, if you want to share it, if you're willing, or any other issues or concerns that you might have, we can address. But if anyone has the prayer revised, I would love to hear it, and I'm sure others would too. Oh, maybe nobody did it yet. That's okay too.
I can share. I haven't done the prayer though.
Go ahead. Sounds good.
So I actually I'm behind on the work, but I actually it's kind of like it's well, I'll just tell the story. It's kind of like 6 and 7 have worked me. So that's actually sort of like what happened. So I one of the things I do is like I play role playing games. And
Mhm.
so I showed up for my local role playing venue and I play games with like people that they're usually kind of like they're acting out their addictions usually while we play. And I I noticed like I went last Thursday and it really felt like they were from a different planet for and like the difference between me and them was like stark, was really and I saw it in a way that I hadn't seen like 6 months previously or even 7 months or whenever I started playing with them. But I really kind of like some of the tired stuff that they were saying, it was just like it was literally like the program had worked me. um Between this workshop and the other one I'm working on my other like money addiction, but it just like it literally is what I think we would hope to get from me going and doing 6 and 7, but it happened before that over the last 3 weeks. And I don't think it just happened the last 3 weeks. I think it happened since I've been in this workshop with y'all. But it was really kind of like profound. And that's just one example. It's in other areas where I've noticed like differences in behavior, but that was one of the real intense ones where like some of the stuff that wouldn't bother me like a couple months ago that they would say like off color jokes or whatever the different things they were doing. I was just really like, wow, this is really kind of like I'm in recovery and they're in complete addiction. And it's okay to be in addiction, but um I just it's also like an added thing, and I'll say this and I'll wrap up that part of like my recovery outside of this workshop is trying to have like a kind of like a positive frame on my thinking and doing a lot of positive kind of stuff. And I realized that there was one member of our team who was more of a kind of forward motion person, even though maybe or not they were active with addiction. But since they disappeared, I realized that now there's nobody with the forward motion, especially at all. So it's just kind of like maybe rock bottom behavior of my first program a lot, just people getting high and, like, and stuff like that, which is okay. Uh, but I just don't know that I need to be around it and say that I'm having fun at this stage in my life, if that makes sense. And so I'll just wrap with that. So I've already kind of like, especially over the holiday season, I really noticed this 6 and 7 like shift. And I think it's from the whole workshop. I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Yeah, Mark, that's the miracle that people talk about, that it it just happens. Um, Sometimes we don't know why or how, or I mean, obviously we're doing the work, but parts of the program just start to click. And it's that healing of the mind. That's what I believe. It's when we start healing our minds, the healing just spreads everywhere. It's like, that wolf story. You can either spread the positive or you can spread the negative, whichever one you're feeding. So when we go about changing our attitudes and changing our lives through a program like this, sometimes ahead of time we see improvements and we haven't even gotten to the place where we should be making them yet. And that's the miracle. And that's like, that's fantastic. That would be everyone's hope, that we could do the work and get some extra bonus stuff in there without even getting to it yet. So that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. Jealous too, but yeah, that's fantastic. Anyone else like to share anything?
I'd like to share.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I thought about, rewriting the prayer. I didn't actually write it out, but basically what I thought was I'm just ready to have all my defects removed, all my fears, all my resentments, my dishonesty. I'm just ready to have them completely removed. So that was that's how I rewrote the prayer.
And you know what? That's a nice, easy, quick prayer when you think about it. You
Yeah,
know, it, people have said that talking, or talking to God or whoever high power, is the same as praying. So if you're saying, just to yourself, I just want all my defects gone, that's a prayer.
okay, good.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in a sense, you did rewrite the prayer without even realizing you were rewriting the prayer.
Right.
Um, it doesn't have to be long and involved for it to be effective. You just have to get your intention out there, and short and sweet sometimes get you there even quicker. You know?
That's what I thought.
Yeah. How many times have you done the workshop?
I just did Herb's workshop before this
Okay, so
one.
this
So
this would be your
this
second
is my
time.
second one, second
Okay.
workshop.
All right. You're getting a lot. You're getting through a lot.
I am. I've done a lot of work on it, and it has given me a sense of freedom, I must say.
Yeah, it really does. It just frees up so much of our lives where we're not focusing on what's wrong, what's going wrong, why am I feeling wrong, why am I wrong. There's so much freedom there.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
A lot of
So, yeah.
serenity. A lot of
Yes, yes, exactly. Thank you, Carol.
Mhm.
Hi, Sarah. Oh, where'd she go? Oh, you know what, Sarah? I'm not hearing you, and I can't see if you're talking because your name is over. It's weird. Oh,
Okay, now,
now I can hear you.
okay. Um, I haven't really rewritten it because I'm sort of comfortable with the way it's stated, but I have made it more specific. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character, and I get specific and define them: my selfishness, self-centeredness, unrealistic expectations, arrogance, dishonesty. There's a whole list of them. Um, but I'm kind of just, and I like also the grant me the strength to do, as I go on from here, to do your bidding. I pray for that every day when I wake up. Give me the strength and the wisdom and the courage to say the right thing. Um, Things will happen, or I tend to have an answer, oh, you should do this kind of thing with my family members, with my friends, and I'm learning to hold my tongue and uh, just listen. And sometimes I do better when I don't say anything at all. Um, but I love the prayer the way it's written. Really, it's just, and uh, I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character, and also give me the strength to do your bidding, and the will and the willingness, the strength and the willingness, I think, to do your bidding. That's how I would restate it, how I stated.
And you know what? I agree with you, Sarah. I think of all the prayers, this prayer, it really ticks off all the boxes. So I struggled to change it into something different. Like I was trying to do that for the purpose of the exercise, but it really is pretty perfect the way it is. So I completely understand what you're saying. It says everything it needs to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree. I think that's I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Cesar.
Hey, Lisa. So I took your advice that you gave to Rochelle last week about, praying for 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my fifth day. And I've been, getting on my knees and praying for God to remove my shortcomings, which is really my worries, my fears about, my kids' health and my fear of, financial security. And I feel the tension getting released a little bit.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it's only
Yeah,
5 days.
5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
not dwelling on it as
you'll
much.
have to tell us after the 30th day how much progress you made.
Yeah,
Because I'm going to guess if you're already feeling a difference at 5 days.
I sometimes I feel like I'm being selfish because I'm not thinking of the kids.
Yep.
But at the same time, I feel like it's self-care,
Yeah.
and that's how my kids will prefer to see me strong and you know
Yep.
um, standing tall.
And remember, the ego always speaks the loudest. So when you're in that place where you're deciding that you're letting this go to something bigger than yourself, the ego's going to want to jump in there and make you worry and be upset and do all those things because that's where the ego lives. So whenever that voice comes in, remember the little angel and the little devil?
Mhm.
That's your devil talking to you. Just replace it with your angel's voice.
I love that.
Yeah, because that's what it's going to do. It's the ego. You can either be in your ego mind or you can be in your holy mind, which is your higher power. And
Yeah,
the ego wants to win. That's what makes an ego so big. It's, you can see it when you talk about people who have a big ego. You've probably worked with people or been around people who have these huge egos and they're just they're so tough to be around.
yeah,
That's the ego. It wants to be in control. It wants to run your life. And it doesn't really care if you're in a positive place or not. It just has to be in control. That's its job. So when you get into that situation where that voice is back there and you're going, oh, I want to be a good mom. Am I not being a good mom? That's your ego. You can
mm,
just dismiss it. You can even talk to it and say, you know what, I don't listen to you anymore. So bye-bye, go away. But that's
nice.
part
Thank
of
you.
the prayer is, when you do it for that 30 days, the ego comes to realize, oh boy, she's serious. She's doing this for 30 days. Maybe as the ego, I'm going to back off a little bit because maybe she knows something better than I do. I mean, obviously that conversation doesn't really happen, but that's the effect. That 30 days of prayer is setting your mind, your body, your soul, all of it up to be in a different way, to do things differently. And that's the whole point. So that ego does not want you to do that. So keep doing it. That's the
Yes,
best thing you
thank
can
you.
do to
Yeah.
defeat the ego, is to do the opposite of what it wants you to do. And you can tell when it's coming from the ego, because it's not looking out for what's best for you. And in this situation, what's best for your son and daughter-in-law.
Yeah. Yeah, when the ego is present, it's I feel tense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a free, I don't feel free.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you know, I love the phrase sunlight of the spirit.
Yeah,
I love that phrase. And what did you say? The sunlight is truth, openness, and something else you said. What was
I
the
did, and I'd
third?
have to go back and look at it. Um, but yeah, that's what the difference is. The light versus the darkness, and
Yeah.
whatever that represents to you. What your lightness is and what your darkness is. And the darkness is everything opposite of that. It's not real. It's pain, and it's misery, and it's control. It's what got us here in the first place,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank
basically.
you.
So thank you, Cesar. Hi, Jill.
Howdy, howdy,
How are you?
howdy. Good, thanks. Finishing up, I had a pretty bad head cold for a week and I'm still kind of managing it. But I have a question about the prayer, the 7-step prayer, in that maybe what I wonder what your thoughts are on adding adding or thinking about the how I want to flip per se, how I want to flip my character flaw into an asset, so that the prayer would so that instead of just saying get rid of, that I also pray for what the asset would be if it was removed.
I think that obviously any way you want to pray, I'm going to say do that. But the purpose of the removal of the character defects is to remind us that we don't do it, that our higher power does. So if you want to add, to the maybe at some point somewhere in there, that the positive things that you want to reach towards, I mean, obviously you can do any prayer you want, but the point of the prayer is to remember that we don't remove it ourselves and that we offer it up to our higher power.
Okay,
So,
thanks. I needed to hear that. Thank you.
yeah. So if you feel like you still want to add on, then absolutely go for it and add on to your prayer. But the point of the prayer is to remember that we don't do the removal. It's done for us. And that's the best part of the prayer. Go ahead,
Okay,
Joel.
thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
No, I was just sometimes we like to put labels on things, and we do it all the time, and we do it to sort of make it easier to understand. And um I sort of was just playing with some of the things that you had said. Um and when you had said maybe about 10 minutes ago, you said, why, right? And I was just thinking about grouping the steps that we've done so far into the two groups, 1 to 3 and then 4 to 7. And generally saying that 1 to 3 is the why. And and then just subdividing them into things that were further said, that 1 is death of the spirit and deadlock. 2 is opening of the sky and reflection. And 3 is knowledge and sunlight. And then 4 to 7 is the how. It's humility and release. And then the road opens. And that's the way I see it,
Yep.
that this is where the road begins, and then you go to 9, and then beyond that. So I just, was thinking about that as, sort of a way for me to conceptualize it and understand
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And if you feel like that helps you get there, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Just,
There is a sheet. I'm going to see if I have it. Yeah, I do have it. I'm going to put it up on the screen because it's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, I was wondering if Joel could repeat what you said.
what I said?
Yeah.
Well, so I was thinking that I was looking at a sheet of paper, and I was saying that I put on the left top 1-3 from steps 1 to 3,
Okay.
and then the next to that I put going towards the right, I put Y with a question mark,
Okay.
and then I put a little arrow, and I put death of the spirit and deadlock, which is step 1. And then another little arrow. And then I put in opening of the sky and reflection, which is sort of step 2 into step 3. And then another little arrow, and then knowledge and sunlight. And then below 1 to 3, I put in 4, in another column below that, I put 4-7. And then next to the 4-7, I put how with a question mark. And I didn't subdivide it the same way that I did the first 3, but I put humility and release. And then I put a little arrow, and I put the road opens. Because once you're humble and you release yourself, it's an open road.
Right.
You're ready to move beyond the confines of self.
Thank you.
Yeah, because wouldn't you say it takes you have to be pretty humble to hand over the power? It's a big concept and a big step. But when we're able to do that, we gain all the power. It's pretty ironic, actually, when you think about it. But what you're describing, Joel, is very similar to what
I'm looking at it now. I just was
yeah,
looking at my own stuff, and now I'm looking at this, and it does seem to be a lot. But
it's similar.
I haven't gone past 7 yet, so
That's okay. We'll
so
wait for your revision.
I don't know about that stuff.
That's okay. So the way that it's described is the first 3 steps are all about your higher power. And that's what we're learning is 1 through 3 is we're learning about our higher power. 4 through 7 is about the self. It's the inventories, it's the amends, it's the character defects. So we're really focusing on ourself. And then when we get to 8 and 9, it's about the other people that are around us that have been on this journey with us. And that's the amends and the admittance or whatever. And then, of course, 10 through 12 is our way of life, which is the 3 steps that we do on the daily, hopefully on the daily. 10 is the looking back and saying, what did I do today? What harms have I done? So you're splitting it up. And as soon as you started saying it, I'm like, oh, he's basically describing the path to freedom.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to actually continue on with my version of it.
Yeah,
and see where it goes,
absolutely.
because I like my version of it. Because
I do too.
for me it gives a little more detail, but it
Yep.
also is a little more descriptive.
Right.
So
It's more personal.
it's more personal. So I'm gonna keep going with it.
Yep. In fact, if everyone wants to do that, if you want to take the 12 steps and do what Joel did with them based on your own experiences in history, it might be really enlightening for you to try it. What did the first 3 steps do for you? What did steps 4 through 7 do for you? What 8 through 9, continue on and take a good look at it. It's a good experience, the way he's describing it and how he made it personal. Because in this program, anything that you can turn into a more personal experience is going to have a bigger impact on you. So if you feel like doing this list that he just did, I'd love to hear back. And I'd like to see yours, Joel, if you want to try
Finish
to
it
jump
up.
ahead and finish it.
Yeah, well, you know what? Keep going with the lessons, and I'll keep going with the chart.
That's fantastic. And I think it's great because now you have something to reference back to.
Yeah,
And I would keep it because at some point you'll look back at it and be like, wow,
and
that's where I started.
maybe
Yeah.
I'll add to it. You know, maybe
Yeah,
there'll be more.
of course you will. You're going to change. Things are going to change. So your list will change, but it's great to see it and to be able to look back on it, to see the confirmation of your change. Absolutely. I mean, just the idea that you're willing to have put that out there shows your willingness to change and your willingness to try and your willingness to do the work.
You know what? I gotta say that this is like the greatest thing that's happened to me in terms of, well, in maybe the greatest thing that's happened to me in terms of just life, because self-knowledge is it's immeasurable how important it is. It's like the most important thing. And
Yes.
you know, when you've been living with a shade over your head, not a lampshade, by the way, just a
Mm-hmm.
shade, you know, then you come to sort of this. I wish I'd come to it 30 years ago, you know.
Yeah, but you know what? We all wish that. Everybody in the rooms wishes that, especially the people that are on the middle-aged side, as we all are. Wouldn't it have been wonderful to have had that experience? But that's where step 12 comes in because you'll pass it on to somebody that's younger and more life ahead of them, and you'll be able to at least give that gift to somebody. That's the sharing of this information that really makes a difference in someone else's life. Or I don't know if you have children or not, but in our children's lives, or people that cross our paths and they just need something, and we know what it is because we've been there, done that. So that's step 12. Our way of life is, wow, this happened. I'm not even sure if I can explain to you why or how it happened, but this incredible change came over my life, and I want to share it with anybody that's willing to listen. And
You
not
know,
everybody is.
I think the thing about doing it when I was younger, and I'm way older than you are, Joel, but was that there was always that thing hanging that, and I was thinking back to what Cesar said and what we talked about last week. What will they think if I change? How
Right.
will they react? And especially, with an adult child and the adult child's wife and family. I need those people, so maybe I shouldn't change that much because maybe they won't. And now I'm starting to see that I need to let go of some of these people, that there are people that have been in my life, and my codependency has been, if something breaks that connection, it was me and I did something bad and I'm a bad person. And I'm starting to realize at 78 that I don't want to waste a lot of time on this anymore. And there's tons of people out there I can, especially with friends, I could replace some of them with other kinder, you know what I'm saying. And I don't have to do that dance. And I tended to attract people who were kind of bossy, and
You
it
know,
always had to be their way. And they would say, "Let's have lunch," and I'd say, "Where do you want to go?" And they'd say to me, "Where do you want to go?" And we always wound up going where they, that kind of thing. And I'm seeing now with some of this work that I've been doing lately that I'm entitled to be free of that. And if some people don't like it, they don't like it. I'm not saying it's easy, especially when you have children and even adult children. That's really scary. But, at some point, I need to say, this is the time I have left, as my friend says, above ground. Is this really the way I want to live the rest of my life? And that's really powerful. And I
you
learned
know,
that here in the program. I didn't learn anywhere else.
Rochelle, two things. I know crosstalk's not allowed, but two things. Number one, you're not that much older than me. And number two, um, in terms of what you just said, since I began the program, I've actually no longer, I actually no longer have any guilt about 2 or 3 relationships that I had massive guilt over for many
Right.
years about losing because I realized that I had played a part in losing those relationships, but that they weren't mine to lose, and that
Right.
I didn't lose them, they lost them, and that whatever part I
Oh,
played wasn't the losing part of it. It was them and their loss, and I have no control over that.
right.
That's not, and I have no reason to feel any guilt over it. Whereas before that, I felt total guilt over it. What did I do? What did I do? Well, I did some things, but I didn't do enough to warrant, their stupidity, and I feel great about that. And that's something that's just an aside that this program did for me. It's to actually put responsibility where it lays. If it lays in my lap, I take responsibility
Right.
for it. And I do take responsibility for some things. And certainly I take more responsibility for some things than I previously took. But for those relationships, I take the responsibility, but I wasn't the cause. And I realized that, you
It's
know?
really powerful.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
You know, Joel, I came into the program in Alateen,
Wow.
and I'm in my 60s.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
Alateen is the program for teenagers. So I've been in the program since I was 14.
Wow.
I'm in my 60s. So when I look back, do I say, oh man, I wish I knew this information? I did know it, but I wasn't applying it because other
Oh,
things were getting in the way, or life was doing something, or maybe I was in a relationship where I was afraid to make those changes because, don't upset the apple cart. That's how we're raised. Don't question anything. So you could have spent your whole life in the program and not gotten it till right now.
yeah. Well,
So
that's true.
yeah.
But when sometimes when people say things like what I said, they really mean it, which I did, but sometimes it's also in a way a metaphor for
Mhm.
just knowledge in general.
Mhm.
What could I have
Yeah.
done with this knowledge 30 years ago? You know, could I have changed? Could I have gone in different directions? Could I have maybe not been such a narcissist? And could I have treated people differently? Could I have been better to my wife? Could I have paid more attention to my kids? Could I have, what could I, I could have done things maybe with a little bit more self-awareness and not hurt people.
Right.
Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would be the same dummy that I was. But, you
Yeah.
know,
And that's the thing, we don't know. We
we don't
can't
know.
answer any of those questions. You might have gone in the program and become a worse person. We
That's
don't
true.
know. We
That's
don't
true.
know. So we let that go.
Yeah,
We
no, it's true. You can't look
yeah,
at the past.
we
But
can't. I mean,
that's
we
true.
do, but when we do, we get into trouble.
That's true.
That's it's a way of beating ourselves up in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hey, I should have done this sooner. I should have done this better. That
Yeah.
voice that we're
That's
trying
right.
to replace that gets
Yeah.
us into our addictions.
That's right. And enough about me. I've been taking up too much time. Go
No, it's
let somebody
whoever
else.
needs to talk. Don't
Yeah.
worry about it. But so yeah, those thoughts are going to come up, and I'm not going to tell you they don't. They do. I still have those thoughts, and it's unfortunate. I think I don't know for sure, but it is what it is. You're where you're at. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I always like that old saying, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Well, you were ready. You
Yeah.
weren't before. And this should be no guilt about that because you just weren't ready. It's okay. There's no
I
judgment.
I didn't even know. I had no idea.
Exactly. You didn't
Somebody
know what
said to
you didn't
me,
know.
a couple of years ago, you need DA, and it took me a couple of years to get here, but I finally got here and I needed it.
Well, you planted a seed and it grew really small, really slow. That's okay. Now it's taking off like crazy.
Yeah.
So who knows? You might make up for time in however you're going to do it now.
Yeah. They might.
I mean, like I said, I was in the program for decades before I really, really got it. Let it really sink in. And I'll tell you what got me to really, really get it was the destruction that was going on in my life. Huge motivator. So a lot of times we might be doing this work and we might be kind of playing with it because life's not so bad, it's okay. But then something happens and we can't ignore it any further. We can't stop looking. We have to say, what is going on? I need to address this. So when the pain gets great enough, we do something. So maybe the fact that you didn't do something sooner means you weren't in that much pain. And hey, that's great. That's a great thing that you can say that. So we do it at our own pace. And what really turns the corner, and I think you'd agree with me on this one, is when we really adopt the higher power concept. That's when things really change. And up to that point, we're reluctant and the information doesn't penetrate because we have that reluctance on our head. We're wearing this hat that says, I'll hear it, but I'm not going to internalize it. So once we get to that place where we say, okay, there is something, I don't know what the heck it is, but there obviously is something because something's happening and I'm not doing it.
Right.
It's like the Bob Dylan song, "Do You, Mr. Jones?"
Yep. So just keep doing whatever you're doing. It's about showing up. I have done workshops where I never lifted a pen. I just listened. I was just there to absorb it. People get us up. I haven't done my homework or I'm not caught up. I'm like, don't worry about it. Just show up. It's getting in your brain. The homework's just to give it a little boost. If you're showing up and you're getting the information and you're hearing it, your brain's going to take it all in.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I was saying to myself when the step for uh
The inventory.
excuse me,
The inventory.
the inventory.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm not putting this all on paper, blah blah blah. But it but it did sink in, and I think the moral sank in is that you have a part to play in everything, and the part is major, if not the cause. And when I looked at every possible defect that I had, or every possible resentment that I had, it was about a defect that I had. And I didn't have to put it on paper. I looked at every possible relationship that I had a defect about that person, and I realized that ultimately I had a part to play in it, and therefore I could set it free. So you don't have to. You don't have to. So, and I get that, but I'm going to put it on paper on the next time around when I catch up.
That's okay. However you do it is
Yeah,
exactly how you should do it.
right.
If that's all you can do is show up, then you show up. Because the alternative is to do nothing. And when we do nothing, we're going to go downhill. That's physics. Whatever's in motion will stay in motion. So we have to make a conscious decision. I'm going to do something if it's just even showing up. And then, of course, the more we do, the more we get out of it. But in the beginning, sometimes just showing up is enough. That's all we can handle. It's a lot to absorb. It's really a lot if you come into this situation where you haven't really been in a traditional group meeting for very long, and then you're in this type of situation, and this is totally different than just showing up at a group. This is a lot of work. This is not small stuff. This is huge, huge, huge stuff. So, doing it like workshop first and meetings later would make it that much harder. So I think you're fairly new to the program. So you're actually doing it the harder way. So you've got to keep that in mind too. People usually sit in talk meetings for years before they realize, oh my God, there's 12 steps and I'm supposed to do them. I thought I was just supposed to read them at every meeting. It was just a reminder, And then at some point you say, oh my God, I'm supposed to participate. And then you do. And then you realize there's 12 steps to be learned, not
Well,
just read. not just looked at, learn them, understand them.
Well, I'm sorry for everybody to occupy this conversation. And if I am, well, I am, and I'm sorry. But I'll
You're
just say one
fine.
more thing. I do understand that, but when I came into this program, I came in as a lawyer, and it was always that sort of mindset that I had to like look in the nooks and crannies. But the other part of it is I came in at 66, and I felt like I was playing catch up. And like I don't know how much time I had left. Both my brothers are dead and they died young, and my favorite brother died at 67. So I was a year away from a magical year of death.
Mhm.
And I felt like I had to like capture something. And I still feel that way. Like I have to, before I go, I want to remedy something. I want to like be whole.
Absolutely.
So that's where I'm coming from. At any rate, I'm done. Go to somebody else. Talk to
Nobody's
somebody
hand is
else.
raised. Don't worry about it. When you talk, we all hear our own version of what you're saying. So it's helpful to everybody. It's not just your story. We all share this commonality. So when you share it, you're sharing our story. It has different details, but our stories are all the same. That's why the 12 steps work on so many people. They don't change person to person. It's the same set of steps because the problem's all the same. We're all individual different people, but we have the same problem. So don't feel like you shouldn't be talking. Absolutely share it. And then somebody else will take a piece of your story and share it with somebody else. And that's how it grows. That's how the whole program grows, is that word of mouth of somebody saying, this guy said something and I could totally resonate with it, and it made me feel like I wasn't so bad after all. So don't hesitate to speak up. It helps everybody, yourself included, but everybody understands your story because we're all living your story with different characters. We all have the same problems: the unmanageability, the addictions, the relationship problems, work problems. It's all there. We have it all. We might have different ways that we express our addiction, but that's not even what this is about. This is about our lack of power. And the reason we use is because we feel like we're powerless. That's when the addiction even starts, is when we feel powerless as people, as human beings. And when we take that first hit of whatever our addiction is, and we feel that feeling, we're addicted to the feeling, not the thing that caused it. So whether it's food, heroin, gambling, sex, it's the same hit. All of it's the same. We just look at it differently with different eyes, but it's the same problem. We didn't feel close to our higher power. We felt powerless. And we find this program that says you are powerless, but here's this power that you can tap into. I can accept being powerless if there's a power out there I can tap into. Hell yeah. Why not? I mean, if you said to me, you're powerless and you're screwed, go home, that would be horrible. But we're not. We're powerless, but we get to tap into the power by being powerless. It's ironic. It's an incredible concept.
I think the other thing about hearing other people, this takes me way back, but I remember being at a meeting and I was the speaker, and I shared about something that my mother was big on emotional abuse, on shaming or whatever. But I judged that because she wasn't clobbering me like I heard from other people at meetings, that it wasn't so bad. And I remember a woman coming up to me after the meeting and saying, my mother used to burn me with cigarettes. But she said, to be honest, I know it was crosstalk, but she said, I actually gasped when you said what your my mother would stop talking to me for like months, and then make me admit that I had done something she thought was terrible, even as an adult. And this woman said that to me, and I thought, well, I would just assume because my mother hadn't burned me with cigarettes that what happened to me wasn't so bad. And pain is pain. And I think that's the other reason for the anonymity is that we all come with our own, if we were perfect and everybody was perfect to us and the world was perfect, I got some crap TV I could be watching for this hour and a half, but we all bring whatever. And I've sponsored people who didn't want to read me their fifth step because they said, this is the most horrible thing you've ever heard. And it was kind of like when they were done, I went, well, where was the horrible thing? Because to them, it was the most horrible thing. So I think that's why we all need each other and why we're in a group. I wouldn't have learned what I learned here in therapy. I just wouldn't have. So.
No, I agree. So keep talking, Joel.
I'm done.
I mean, in general.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Is anyone else like to talk besides Joel? All right, then we will do the serenity prayer, and I'll send that paper out to everybody with the homework if you want to go ahead and do what Joel did. I think that it's a nice little added homework assignment we can try. So, God, please grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Keep
everybody.
up the good work. Don't worry about homework. Just show up, and you that's enough. Everything else is bonus. Okay?
Right.
Thank you,
Right.
Lisa.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
I'll
you.
see you next week.
Stay warm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Be
Thank
good,
you.
everybody.